Oh, let's go one more time, Barry. Let's go one more time through because it's Breeders' Cup, baby. It's Breeders' Cup. I'm feeling it. We got Joey Cleveland rocking out with the call to post. We're going through one more time. Here we go. Okay. Barry, I'm pumped, man. I am pumped. It is time for the Breeders' Cup. It's pumped combined with strung out, a little bit of both. I've been up early. I've been working hard. I've been out at the track for the last 7-8 days or so, trying to find out anything I can in the morning, doing a little bit of work, and I'm diving into those DRF Breeders' Cup past performances. They are now available. You can get the full package, all sorts of different packages. If you go to shop.breederscup.com, the link will be directly underneath in the stream if you're watching. So Barry, my friend, we always dive into these DRF formulator past performances, and in the Breeders' Cup packages you get even more. You can purchase ones with Timeform US, clock reports, betting strategies, different things based on how much you feel like are the kinds of needs you have as a horse player. But great time, buddy, and you and I are going to dive into the Saturday Breeders' Cup races. How are things going on your end?
Excellent, man. It's busy, but it's a good busy. Everybody wants, some information and how to set up for these races, and I love it. I love when everybody gets involved. Everybody wants to be involved in this and get some bet downs and have a great weekend. I mean, what this card lacks in star power, it makes up for in betting opportunities.
And we will get into all of those Breeders' Cup races. So we're going to talk about races 3 and starting with race 3 on Saturday, which is the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. That's the first of the Breeders' Cup races. We'll go through race number 11 at Santa Anita. And it's the final countdown. It's one day. We are recording this on Thursday evening. And one big part of those Breeders' Cup packages, the Clocker Reports. You can purchase those as part of the package or as a standalone. Mike Welsh has been out there all last couple of weeks, and man, Mike Welsh is one of the hardest working guys in racing. Clockers have a tough gig out there. They do a really great job, and he's fantastic at what he does. So if you need any help with the Clocker Reports, you can check those out, and you can get them individually, or you can buy them as part of the package. Let's get into Saturday, my friend. We have a lot of ground to cover for Saturday as, normally you've been the Ricky Henderson leadoff hitter in my Breeders' Cup big preview shows or the Derby preview shows. But basically, this would be like Ricky Henderson's dream lineup, right? A lineup
Absolutely.
Full of Rickies, because you are not only leadoff, but you are every lineup. You are every position in the lineup all the way through.
Ricky loves that.
Ricky loves him some Ricky, right? So Ricky would love him a lineup of all Rickies. So I feel like it works out well. Barry, we're going to have a good time going through these Breeders' Cup races. For those of you who have joined in and been a part, thank you so much for hanging out with us for all of our previews. And we've covered just many tracks throughout the last couple of months, you and I.
Oh, yeah.
And now we get to the big ones. Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Unfortunately, right off the bat, some sad news to talk about with Practical Move, who would have been a major player in this race. He was entered as 3-1 on the morning line, and Practical Move passed away just a few days ago after coming off the track, a heart attack, which is so sad. And for a young horse like this, and really sad to think about, Barry, because, I mean, we can't go without talking about some of the unfortunate incidents throughout the week that have already happened with Practical Move, which is so sad. And all of the horses, Go Rocket Ride, and then even with Arcangelo being retired now, all young horses, all 3-year-olds, and all horses that didn't even run in the Derby this year.
Actually, Practical Move was a horse that I liked for the Derby, and he didn't make that race, and I was a little disappointed, but he was out quite a while and stuff. It's just unfortunate because he was looking good out there on the track, and it's just really unfortunate what's happened to all 3 of them.
Yeah, and very tough and very sad news, and to have to, it's never easy to go from something really serious like that and then move our conversation back into the handicapping for the day. But we will get into the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and very sad for everyone involved with Practical Move there. Rest in peace. So when we scratch one of the horses who's going to be a major player. It will change the complexion of the race. I don't think from a pace standpoint, it necessarily would have changed it all that much, because it still to me looks like you have, I think, Zozos as the one to catch in here. National Treasure always wants to be forward, Barry. I don't know if he's as quick as Zozos. Stage Raider also probably has to go maybe a little bit just from the inside. He'll probably settle, but I think he'll want to be somewhat forward. How do you see this thing playing out with Cody's Wish looking to win back-to-back Breeders' Cup Dirt Miles?
I have to tell you, I am against Cody's Wish in this spot. I mean, he's running on a track that really isn't conducive to his style. And that's going to make a difference, especially when you have a horse, a potential kind of lone speed type in Zozos. I think Cody's Wish is kind of up against it in this spot. A great story and everything, but man, it's going to be tough for that horse to get it done. I mean, he certainly can. He's special enough to do it, and if he does, I mean, he will be a Hall of Famer if he wins this race for sure. But I'm a little wacky here,
I think. I hope we're on the same wacky.
I think we might be.
Are we?
I'm on Shirl's B.
Okay, you're on Shirl's B. We're not on the same wackiness, but we're equally as wacky. So I love it. Talk to us about Shirl's B.
Shirl's B is very lightly raced 3-year-old, and those 2 races in Maidon were pretty damn good. And then they stopped on the horse for whatever reason. Comes back at a 1 3/16 race, which I believe they knew this horse wasn't going to get out of, B Jersey, Jersey Town, Perfect Soul, maybe could, but I don't think that was the goal. I think this race was the prime target here. And the horse is training up a storm. And what I think is this horse might be a little bit more forwardly placed than you would think. Because from the comments since Zozos's last race, it really sounded like Brad Cox didn't want to run at all in the Breeders' Cup, especially with this horse. And I'm going to go with that. He kind of showed his hand a little bit and really wasn't too enthusiastic about running him in this spot. So I think if this horse gets challenged, he might end up folding. And I'm pretty sure, Shirl's B is quick enough to stay with those horses, but just doesn't need to be
on the front end.
Right. And Louis Saez is the king of that kind of ride.
The exact trip you described is why I like Skippy Longstocking. I think he can sit right behind him. Like, he got the lead last time out at Charlestown. The thing about Skippy, he's pretty honest. Can he just be like 4th? Just kind of like what you're talking about right there, and he's good enough on his best day to compete when you're talking about numbers and figures. This is a horse who was 3rd in the Belmont a couple years back. He has some class. He has, triple-digit buyer speed figures. He has a little versatility to him, and he's going to be cutting back. He's going to be a little fit. I think he could sit that same type of trip we're looking for. He's interesting to me. I'm definitely using him because I do think Zozos will probably get some company. I think if anybody clears the field, it's probably Zozos, right? I think if somebody gets away, it would be him. But I don't think National Treasure really wants to sit off. He's never done that confidently. And Pratt's pretty aggressive in this type of spot, especially with the horse cutting back. I could see him really being like maybe just right on the hip of Zozos, not too far off.
Yeah, I hope that's the case, because that's going to help out everybody, because I think that'll prompt a horse like Charge It to try to get involved earlier.
Because, I mean, many people have wanted to give Charge It a big, kind of put him ahead of, put the cart ahead of the horse, right? Kind of before he's won a big one, they've kind of wanted him to be that horse. It's another great spot for him cutting back to a mile and it not necessarily facing the strongest group in the world, right? Like, he's got Cody's Wish to deal with again, but that Met Mile was tougher because the 2 other horses that were in front of him are in the Classic. And It was, that was a legitimate race, and he kind of moved into it when it was a tough one. This race is probably not as difficult as that one, just plain and simple. And it wouldn't be a shock to see him not have to run all that much better than he had. he could run some of these races and win this. I've never really been a huge fan of his, but it's not like a monster group if Cody's Wish doesn't show up with like his tip-top game.
Right. And it's right for anybody to win this race. I mean, all these horses are really, really good quality. There's just not a lot of them. But, it's kind of a rider's race if you want to look at it that way, because, at least what we can see, Zozos is really the clear horse that's probably going to be on the front end. Whether he
Algiers is
gets
out.
company, right? Whether he gets company or not is going to make the difference.
Yeah.
If he's allowed to just kind of putt along, he's going to win easily. Hopefully, in a big Grade 1 like this, they try to force the issue and not let him get away.
Because the one thing I will say, I'd be pretty shocked if he's sitting anywhere, because ever since Giroux's been aboard, he's done a really good job of just being aggressive with him, and it's worked out well. And some horses want that and need that. And like just in all racing, I wish more horses were ridden that way right off the bat, right? Or just for a little while. And so I'm pretty content, or I'm pretty convinced he's going to be forwardly placed. It's just, is National Treasure, like you said, are the others as fast as him? Do they have to get hustled to go? Does Stage Raider maybe put a little pressure on him from the inside? I thought the price of the 6 was interesting. Barry likes the price of Sherrills B sitting close, so we give you a few. Charge It wouldn't shock me. That was one I would throw into some exotics at least in the mix, because I think could get a trip. And then I feel like Cody's Wish will come running. But on this track, if there's not like what kind of speed that like duel happens in here, like he's the horse to beat, but I just don't think he's quite as, he's a popular horse and it would be cool for him to win again. I don't see it necessarily setting up that perfect for him in here,
Definitely not. I mean, like I said, his running style, the track, he's up against a lot, and he can overcome it. He's done it before.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to put.
Is it worth the bet at the short price?
Right. Exactly. That's where the gamble is.
Yep. At the short price with the running style, where he's probably going to be, pretty far behind, or he may not be getting that kind of setup on a track that's not great to it. So we will talk about the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf next. Race number 4. This one is 1.25 miles. And Barry, we have Inspiral, who's going to take a lot of money in here, coming in from Newmarket last time out. This horse made a big early move to the lead, and Dettori will be extremely live. You have an Italian who will be the one to catch. Warm Heart is also super classy. Those are, I think, your top 3 betting choices on paper. Let's kind of start with them from a talking standpoint. Of those horses, do you not like? Which of them do you kind of prefer? And then we'll kind of get to some others.
Warm Heart is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Although I'm going to try to beat that horse in this race eventually, but there's really no knocks on this horse. He ran, kind of a lackluster race in the Irish Oaks, but besides that, has been spot on. I mean, even from the first race on to now, and it is steadily improving. This is what you want to see, but it almost seems too good to be true.
She's great. Yeah, it's tough to knock her right now, her overall form. Yeah, I don't have many knocks on her. What about from a speed standpoint? What do we do with an Italian who, it's funny, she's not won. She didn't win her last 2 starts. She got beat right on the wire. It's not like she ran poorly on speed figures in those races, but she was so heavily favored that it kind of feels like she was disappointing in those races, right? And now she's going to be in a spot where she has to go a little bit longer. She was the runner-up in this race again last year. It would never shock me to see her sneak away, but are you going to be getting the right kind of price on her in this spot? I guess she's going to be bigger than she was last year, right? She was only like 3-1 in the Filly and Mare Turf last year.
Yeah, I'd probably get the same price. I think, because it's so crazy, because I really don't understand how she lost her last 2 races.
Me neither.
Yeah, I mean, she's really run the same race every time.
And Gina Romantica just jumped up and kind of white. I mean, those horses
White
ran
Beam
big
too.
races.
Yeah.
White Beam too. They ran monster races. Like, what's nice about the formulator past performances that we're looking at, you can take a look and we'll see Gina Romantica in a little bit. She ran a 105 Beyer speed figure in that race, which was a monster race. And then you kind of dive back into her form and see like maybe she's more like a miler, you know, maybe just going a little farther than that is probably she mile, and, you know, don't want to go 3/16 here. And then even prior to that, we could talk about White Beam, who ran that really big race. And you can look, you know, White Beam was kind of coming into it in nice form, but White Beam jumps up and runs a 100 in beating, you know, an Italian that day also. So, yeah, she lost to horses that really had like peaking on the day that they beat her. It's, again, what's nice about her, at least from me as a gambler, I know what I'm going to get with her. Right? I'm not worried about her taking back. I'm never like, she's going to be sitting off the pace a little bit in here. Like, there's a couple of, they're going, you know, and even with Joel, like with this horse, they're going. So she is always going to be a big talking point in any race that she's in.
Yeah, absolutely. It it's such a tough spot. I mean, even being on the rail, there's a lot that you can kind of. It's weird, you know. And I don't know if an Italian is really the horse that can just wire this field easily, because those European invaders, they close like a freight train, and you're facing another horse in Spiral.
Yeah.
That, you know, all things being equal, would blow that horse away.
This is a nice animal.
Yeah, and it's hard to get around either one of them, but if, you know, obviously given the two, I'm gonna take Inspiral. I mean,
I think this is a horse
it's
to
just,
beat, hands
yeah,
down. And I'm going to probably, if I'm playing any multi exotics, I would probably use Inspiral and one horse I think is a little bit of a price, but I think this is the horse to beat. If anyone was looking for like a place to maybe kind of key in on early in the Saturday card, I would have no problem here. The one that I will use along with Inspiral is Lumiere Rock, because I think this horse will be sitting not far behind an Italian. She's not nearly as quick. An Italian's very fast, but this horse is pretty quick. I really liked her effort last time out. So she was kind of along the inside, and she just kind of made an early move up to challenge, and then she was leading. She held third, and she was just trying really hard. And I could see her just behind an Italian in like second or third, and maybe getting the jump on some of these other deeper closers that maybe they get caught in some traffic. And I think she's been pretty steady too. Yeah, I think it's a nice spot for Lumiere Rock. So I will use the 11 with the 6, who I think is the horse to beat in Spiral. And we talked
tried to make a case for the McCulloch, but
yeah,
she's awfully slow, and the only way I think that she could kind of make some noise is if, you know, Fev Rover decides to get bold and challenge in Italian, which I don't think is going to happen. But I would use McCulloch, you know, with Irad underneath in a lot of situations here.
Okay, let us move along to race number 5. Where are we headed next? We're going to the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Goodnight Olive is another one looking to win back-to-back Breeders' Cups. She was your Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint winner in 2022. So far this year, she's won a couple times. But, Barry, there was a race where she didn't draw the rail, but she drew post 2, and she got trapped inside. And she couldn't get through, and she didn't win that race. And it was one that through the year that sort of sticks out. It was on Derby Day. It was the Derby City Distaff, and she was the heavy favorite that day. She finished third. She lost to Monterey, and so when you look at a horse like this and you feel like, yeah, you know, on her best days, her biggest races are probably the best of any in here. We've seen her get beat by a horse in this race when she kind of got stuck inside, in a similar type spot where on paper she towered over the field. So I do not know if she's necessarily ascension here, drawing the rail, going 7 furlongs. Maybe you feel differently. Let's talk Goodnight Olive and then some others.
I do not feel differently. I
Yeah,
think she's definitely vulnerable. She ran a bang up race
that was
at
an awesome race.
Saratoga.
Yep.
Yeah, against Echo Zulu, who she had no shot against, funny enough. But I just can't. It's hard for me to take a horse like this in this race from the rail. No prep races since the last race she had in August, and there's quite a bit of speed here that can kind of make it real difficult for her to win this race, let's say, because she usually likes to be kind of forward. But I don't know, man. I think a horse that might end up doing something nice in here and hopefully winning this race is the 3 Edda. I
Nice.
think this horse can kind of rate. It's a little strange that Bob's putting on the blinkers, and I think everybody thinks that it's going to add to the pace scenario, and I'm going to opt to say it's not,
And that's where you're
because
hoping.
she's shown the ability to rate in the past, not too far back, in those 6.5 furlong races, and also has been stretched out to a mile and a 16th. But she has some ability to kind of sit a little bit, and I think it's just enough to get this horse into the winner's circle.
Certainly been a win machine, and she is 10-1 for connections that win a ton of races here at Santa Anita and in Southern California. The horse who I like is actually the horse who beat her last time out. Kirsten Bosch, knowing this is a horse who's coming from off the pace, no doubt about it. Like, that's what she wants. And what's key is, let's just look at her sprint races. So let's eliminate her races behind Adair Manor going long. She's got no shot in those races. Adair Manor is so much faster than her, and she's just going to run away from them. She's in fields of 5, chasing like lone speed. So those races, she has no chance. In a race where Ida has a 7-length advantage on her, she's got no shot. When it's a small field and there's not a lot of there's not that much of a contended pace. But in this race, going 7, where there should be a good amount of pace, even maybe Goodnight Olive having to go from the rail just to, and at least early, just to kind of secure some position, because we know for sure, Barry, that the 7 and 9 are going.
Oh, yeah.
Society has to go because she's freaky fast, and she's the type that might just run them all off their feet. She can do that. But if she gets pressure, she's super vulnerable. And Ujiri is also pretty quick. So
I mean, she was trying to keep up with Goodnight Olive back at Keeneland in the Madison and couldn't. But I think the post position kind of messed up there, and she was, there's only 5 horses in that race, so it was a really kind of weird.
Yes, more of a rider's tactical sort of, because she was, her and Society again were sort of backed up in that race, right?
But you see, every time Santana rides her, she's on the lead.
Yep. And she's drawn to the outside too.
And I think that's the plan.
So if those two at least, and 1 or 2 others are going, I'm just looking at this race for Kirsten Bosch. I'm eliminating the routes, and I'm looking at the last, 3 sprint races where we have a graded stakes win, a runner-up behind Ida, and then a runner-up behind Elm Drive. All races that were very good, where we know what we're going to get from her. She's going to come closing. Santa Anita is not always the greatest track to close, but here's the difference, right? Kirsten Bosch versus what we were talking about earlier with like a horse like Cody's Wish. I think she's going to get the trip, and I think this race sets up on paper to me better, and she's going to be a way bigger price, so it's already built into that. That's the difference when I'm playing a horse that I wouldn't necessarily go tell everyone to bet all the closers at Santa Anita, right? But in certain races, if it does look like that on paper, I think we have to play it that way. I'm not going to start thinking about a bias in a race that looks fair to me until I see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Japanese horse, that one's still in, right?
Let me check. I think it's out, actually. I'm pretty sure. Let me check.
If that one's out, then it's a moot point. But
yeah, let me check, because they have a No, Mike Yell's out of the turf sprint, so I'll confirm on that
Okay.
one. But yeah, because they have just a long thread that's sort of going through everyone that's like which races they're out of. It's a little
Yeah,
tricky
it
to
was her
follow.
first preference was
Yeah,
the
was
turf
that. So
sprint.
they were just
But
giving it which race she was preferred. Yeah.
if she lands here, she might be tough.
So
I mean, she's run in the Hong Kong Sprint, which is like like one of the toughest races in the world, literally. And ran pretty good. She's beaten Songline before, who's going to go favorite in the mile. I
it just
mean,
is the
she's
dirt,
got
right?
ability. It's just if she takes to the dirt, this one's going to be a player.
A look at the Filly and Mare Sprint. Race 5 on Saturday as we continue along the Breeders' Cup Saturday. Where do we head next? The Breeders' Cup Mile. Mile on the turf in here. Barry,
My favorite race.
the favorite. Okay, well then you start. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, this is such an interesting race. There's so much going on in here. You got horses like, Cheryl Spite, who ran great, you know, all last year, really. Um, then ran a huge race in the Dubai Turf. Even tried Tokyo in the February stakes. Didn't go so well. But the horses bounced back, ran two pretty good races, but
Mm-hmm.
31 on the line, it's tough to take. And that horse is not without a chance. Gina Romantica, who we just talked about, ran huge against In Italian last time. Old Warhorse, Casa Creed.
Yeah, man, this is a tough
That's
dude.
that's who I like
Me
pretty
too.
much the most here.
And I think
I,
because I'm like rooting for him too, but I think he's
he
looked
fits.
good, man, and it just feels like he.
He
I
fits.
think for him,
This
he
is the
does.
big race. This is the
Yep.
one he's gonna
Him
win.
like at this price with this field where it's a very good field, like you're saying. But I think because it's deep, he'll get a little overlooked. He's going to be like a little
Absolutely.
better value, and there's a couple of those races that he was so wide, just wide, like all the way around, right? And just giving up so much ground and just trying. This will be another shot at the Breeders' Cup where he hadn't really fired some of his better ones, but this year he's coming off a couple of his best ever races. I have him on top in here. I like him and I'm
Yeah,
rooting for
I
him.
like him too because there's enough speed for him to run it.
Yep.
And he just missed beating Songline in in in
And
uh, in Saudi
yeah.
last year,
Yep.
and then came back and almost won again and just missed. So I think we're going to get one of those type of efforts out of him. You have Modge in here who's super fast, and Astronomer who's probably going to add to the pace. This is going to get a little hot up front, and I think Casa Creed's just got to be there, because a horse like Du Jour probably has to come from too far back. Same thing with Cheryl Spite, might have to be from way too back, and Gina Romantica. So Casa Creed is probably going to sit, between the front runners and those horses and get first run, and that might be the winning move.
Yep. And that sort of would lead to how I handicap this race overall, Barry, because I did feel like there were probably two. I don't think Master of Foxhounds is as fast as the others, but it's not like he wants to be way out of it. And with
No, he's
Maldonado
going to go.
aboard, and like
Yeah.
Maldonado's aboard, they're not going to be taking way back. So those three should be forward, and I think they'll all be keeping each other honest. And I don't like. I was a little low on Maj coming into this race as it is, just for her at this price in this spot. So, and now with the way the race shapes up, I'm not really high on the horses I think are going to be the pace horses, right? That group of three. So I was looking for sort of other horses, and I agreed with you. I don't know if they're going to be melting down, right? I think those three will all be up front, kind of pushing each other, but I want the horses that could be maybe in that group right behind them. And that to
Well,
me, or, in middle of the pack, that's sort of where I'm hoping Creed is in here. And Songline, I'm also hoping that the 12, Exalted. Those are the three that I probably will use in some of my exotics. Exalted more of the under that I'll throw into a couple spots, but I do think he had a really nice year earlier in the year. He's fresher now, but when we're just talking about trip, all of those races he run when he flipped to the grass were like exactly how we're projecting this race could be won. Like
Yeah,
a couple speed horses go, he's behind him. He just moves early, and like a couple of the other horses just come too late.
yeah, it's funny with paces on the turf. Like sometimes it doesn't have to be like a supersonic pace for the horse up front to be taxed.
Nope.
And I think that's what we're going to see, because as long as Maj doesn't get a breather, then the race is probably going to play out sort of fairly. And Exalted is another one that was on my radar too. That can kind of finish, and he's not going to be way back, because that move really doesn't work that well at Santa Anita, like the huge launch. It doesn't really work well in California, period, to be honest. But it's not going to be a supersonic pace, and they're going to go fast enough where the closers can close. And the other horse that I kind of liked a little bit here is Kalina, the 11. Um, Another one, a Japanese horse that's kind of on the rise, won the Prix de la Forge, I believe on was it on
October the 1st. Yeah.
yeah, on Art Day.
And yep. And I couldn't like, if I'm playing a deeper ticket, this was one of the horses I had in like a group of 2 to 3 horses where it's like, I'll probably play her in one of the races where I key someone else I really like in the others, because I don't have knocks on her. I just didn't know what to do, if she is like 6-8 to 1, I'd be a little frustrated, because this is that good it's a good race to really sink your teeth
Yeah,
into. It
and
really
you know
is.
what? Honestly, like her morning line of 6 to 1 is kind of like the over under for for
Yeah.
like a game, because it's like, all right, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do if she's 5 to 1, because she might not be a good bet at 5 to 1.
No,
She
but she
might.
might be a little higher than that.
Right, that's what I mean. She could drift up and be kind of lost in the shuffle, because it's clear that people are going to probably be enamored with Maj a little bit too. So I'm guessing that Songline is probably going to be one of the top two favorites, and then after that it'll probably be Maj. So her odds are going to go up, and I think Du Jour might actually get bet because it's home team.
Du Jour, who's been good on the turf. I believe Baffert's never won a Breeders' Cup turf race. I think I saw that
Yeah, no, he has
was
not.
a thing.
That is
So
correct.
this would
Interesting.
be this would be a first for them. And Du Jour, yeah, I mean, this horse has always had some ability, and he's been in nice form right now. We mentioned the 3 who we were both on: Casa Creed, 10 Songline. I think the horse to beat. Some live long shots along the way. We've gone through a lot of this field here. Good luck in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Let's get to the distaff. Now, remember, the way that the Saturday schedule is a little different this year based on TV, right? Always TV is very,
Yeah.
very, very, very important. Oh, you know what? I mean, we didn't even mention Master of the Seas too, who was in that race, like on the way outside. That's a tough post for him, but again, it's like just a strong group when you're forgetting to even mention Master of the Seas,
Right, and he's in the 14th spot. I think his morning line was a little off because they did it before the post.
Yeah, so he'll float
He'll float
up a little bit too. I think so too. He should be in the 5-ish, 6 to 1-ish range, definitely just with the post there to deal with. Okay, let's go to the 7th race, which is the distaff. Now, we've had a few of these horses, Barry, very fast horses that have been able to wire fields in their local circuits. You have Idiomatic, kind of wherever Idiomatic's gone, she's pretty much been the controlling speed. Adair Manor has been able to really do whatever she's wanted out in Southern California, basically right on the front end. You also have Randomize, who's recently done the same thing, been able to wire fields and win some big races and do it on the front end. So, I mean, just those 3 in here alone, they're all fast. They've all been winning their big races going to the lead. I mean, they can sit off a little. Idiomatic has, Adair Manor slightly has, but for all 3 of these horses, their best win chances would to be right on the lead and pushing it. I just have a hard time seeing anything but a contested and fair and honest pace in here, Barry.
Yeah, and that's that's what we need because the horse I like definitely needs a quick pace. And there was basically two Brad Cox horses that I like here, and it's not Idiomatic. Um, I'm really against that horse in this spot. Really soft leads that horse has gotten in the races that she's won in the last four. Stumbled a bit at Delaware, but she was 20 times better than any other horse in that race,
Yeah.
and she still won. Um, so I'm really against her. Adair Manor is just a pure speedball. She could probably get it done, but I think she's another one that probably needs a softer pace.
Yep.
And it was basically between Wet Paint and Moray, and you know me, I'm gonna go with the longer price.
Nice.
Is a little weird because it's under Brad Cox, but the owner, they changed hands, I think after the last race, and has a Japanese owner, and they brought in Christophe Lemaire for this ride, which is huge. Which means that they think this horse has a good chance to win. And I also believe that as well. This group is kind of strange because they don't light up the speed figure realm too
No.
much. They're not super fast, but they all kind of run the same. As
The
far
ones
as
that
speed
one
figures.
and the one like Idiomatic that has kind of done them with the kind of on
With
the front
with the
end.
caveat, yeah.
Yeah.
And the horse with the old class actually had run better numbers previously and doesn't look as good on paper. So I'm kind of treading lightly with Clairiere because there's a chance that her price will go up and I'll like her more.
Yeah. She's a use to me in here. And I had 3 horses that I'm going to use. And now I'm going to throw in a Morier too that you like a little bit more because she fits the profile of the trip I'm looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the trip I'm looking for is those off the pace types. I'm going to use Clairiere, Wet Paint, and Pretty Mischievous.
Yeah, Wet Paint is definitely on my radar too. So,
yep, those are the 3 for me because I just think they're going to sit the trips. Now, Wet Paint and Clairiere might be too deep of closers for this track. So that's why I'm going to also include Pretty Mischievous because she will get that jump trip, right? She can sit the jump, make that early move. She won't have to be, she doesn't have to be as far back as maybe she's been in some of her others. I think she's kind of got a little more sneaky positional speed, like the trip she sat in the Kentucky Oaks. Give me that one, right? Sitting 4th or 5th, 3 lengths off and just move early to the lead. That's why I want to use her in here because I think she could end up getting that jump and getting a really nice trip.
But it's so wild that, a horse that good gets overlooked a lot.
I know.
You can look at it. You look at her past performances. She's not favored very often,
and she's never even when she
not
runs
like
good
every time.
Yep.
Every time
she's been like and it's because she's not
Flashy.
been like an open lengths winner, right? She doesn't win by 5.
Gets right up at the end of the race, and that's it. This gets up
well measured, and yeah, I think it's a good spot for her too. As I agree with you, hey, maybe Idiomatic is better than we think, right? And maybe those speed figures are right, and she does prove it. I think she's taken advantage of getting pretty soft trips. We did not see the best version of Nest in either of the races that she won, and I think it feels like those races were better because she beat Nest, but Nest wasn't really Nest in those races. She didn't fire, right? So it's just a bummer there, Barry, as we continue along. Okay, my friend. So final thoughts on the distaff as I get our PPs pulled back up.
Gun to my head, I'm going to play Moray to win.
Morier to win?
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk race number 8, Barry. We are going to the Breeders' Cup Turf, 1.5 miles in the Breeders' Cup Turf. And I was talking about this earlier today on Twitter, Barry. I'm not a clocker. I won't pretend to be a clocker, but I have been out at the track since Saturday morning. So I've been out there from about 5:00 a.m. right, pretty much right when the track opens till the morning's close. It's about 5 hours, and I've seen almost all the horses come out that have been here from Saturday through today. So almost all the Breeders' Cup horses. I've got hundreds of little snippets. again, I'm not sitting down documenting everything. I'm just looking
Should.
for, no, I know. I'm just sort of looking for myself. I'm posting them all and stuff. I was just kind of which horses to me made me look like a second glance, or which horses to me were like, oh, that horse kind of caught my eye, randomly. And the one all week long for me that it was Shayar. And it was so weird to me that like 2 or 3 times without even seeing the saddle, just kind of like watching the horse prance a little bit. And then as the horse would get closer to me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, is that the same horse again? And so I like all week I've become a huge fan of this horse now. And I tried to dive and do a little research also. This is a horse who does not like some of the ground it had been dealing with. In its most recent race on August the 20th, it started pouring that day during the day, and the horse was not dealing well with it. He couldn't breathe. They had tieback surgery after the race. So can I eliminate that last race, which is the one everyone's going to look at? And then if I eliminate that last race and I'm looking at this horse's form prior to it, he's been beaten twice by Equinox, who's like the best horse we've seen
in the world
right now. He has a win we see last year in the Dubai Shima Classic. This is a horse who has legitimately been at Ascot, Meydan, Tokyo, faced some top tier competition all over the world, but he's had some bad luck this year, and is he going to need to be fit? Yes. Like there are a bunch of reasons you can throw at why he won't win this race, but he's going to be double-digit odds. And he's a horse that really just jumped off the page to me, or jumped off the track to me when I was watching him in the mornings, and then finding out that he did have an excuse for that poor race. Look, he was only 8-1 in that race last time in that field of 15. Prior to that, he's against Equinox. Prior to that, he's favored in the Japan Cup last year. Like,
stellar.
We see like these company lines have been awesome. I was for sure going to use him in some way. And then just hearing some of the things I've heard about him, I like him a little bit more in here, Barry. So he's going to be
you already know. I sent you the message. I was like, yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one a lot in this spot. I think the draw is really the key for me, because it's a little weird start. They're up the hill, and I just think this horse can get into his rhythm and do his thing. I mean, I don't really see like, Bolshoi Ballet doing much in here. I know the last figure looks like huge, but it was on a bog, complete bog, and the horse hadn't done anything on anything firm. Like when that horse was here before, just wasn't any good. August Rodin, I'm not really sure about. I mean, this horse has been good and got good.
I mean, both the 5 and the 9 are. I don't really have
question marks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have knocks on them whatsoever. There are always question marks coming over. They're going to be short prices, like super classy. I have made main question marks, I think, about like all of the horses that we've seen anything from. Right? This was the one race that was sort of funny and like I just didn't think, like Warlike Goddess, it just way out wide too.
Yeah, that's an impossible trip.
That's going to be really, really tough for her, I think.
This is the second year in a row she's done this. She was badly.
Yep, remember 13 last year. Yeah, way out wide. And she didn't run poorly. She ran good from being out there. But and King of Steel, if this horse wins back in 2 weeks at like a short price, that's amazing. This horse ran on October the 21st.
Yeah, and the trainer talking about this horse acted as if he didn't want to come. And that's always a pause for concern when the trainers are like, yeah, we're going to kind of go. Yeah, and not only that horse's nemesis, August Rodin, is in this race too. So it just doesn't feel like it. That could be just like an owner's move. And that's why I don't want any part. But Most of Def is kind of on that same mold as the one. The only problem is his horse is going to be short odds.
Yeah, I'm going 1 in 9 for me. We're
Go.
like how I think the 9's the horse to beat. I'm gonna throw the 1 in all the mix too as the price that I really enjoy. We talked about the Equinox running lines here. Mostadef has won the last 3 races where he didn't run into Equinox. And just unbelievable races, super classy. Like, we don't have to sell you a whole lot on Mostadov, but we sold you a little on the 1 Sharyar.
So
And
what are your feelings on Up to Mark? Because I think this horse has a shot. And a lot of people are poo-pooing him because they're like, oh, he can't go that far.
I
He's
think
been
he
able
can
to
go that
handle it.
far.
I
I
think
think
he's been able to handle it.
I think he's I think he would be better in the other race, but I don't think he's without a shot in here. My whole thing is I just don't like him probably as much as the 9. And like, I don't like him from a big price standpoint as much as if I'm trying to beat one of the favorites, I'd probably go a little bit bigger than him. But I wouldn't talk if somebody liked Up to the Mark, I would not talk them off of him. I
Yeah.
just don't personally like him as
I
much as
agree.
some others.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think he can get in the number for sure. It's
Yep,
just a matter of what price he's going to be. That's what I
exactly.
don't know. I mean, there's a situation where he could be bet a little bit
A
and
seven to
kind of
two,
right.
right?
And that's where I would never touch him.
Me too. If he was 6 and above,
Yeah, I'd have to
count
pause and give
count
the
me in to
little
throw him into like a pick 4s and pick 5s for sure.
exactly. You
You
see me
know,
holding my chin like,
yeah, that's the stroke. You're doing the stroke, like the the stroke the brow a little bit. Yeah. As we move to the 9th race, which is the Breeders' Cup Classic, Barry. The Breeders' Cup Classic is not the main event this year feature based on the money, the TV, right? That's what's important
That's it.
always. Always. What's important? TV rights. And this year, the Breeders' Cup Classic is going to go as race number 9, which is, from a gambling standpoint, the Breeders' Cup, there's a couple of fine races afterwards, right? Like the Turf Sprint and Sprint.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not like those are bad races, but
those are
it is
right.
just,
Those are in my lane.
yeah, me too. And it is just sort of funny where it's like the Breeders' Cup Classic isn't that final one. It's very strange. Arcangelo is out, we know, and Arcangelo is retired. Just one more kind of trip through the field to see if there was anything else we need to mention before we get in here. So no, Barry, with the 1 Arcangelo out, who would have taken a lot of support, it will probably leave the Baffert runner Arabian Night. I'd also imagine that the 8 Ushiba Tesoro will take a good amount of money. He's had a lot of good buzz this week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The first question I asked myself looking at this race is, will or is Saudi Crown as fast as Arabian Night?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Arabian Night, I mean, might not be as fast as Saudi Crown.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done.
And that's what's scary about a race where it looks like there's just the 2. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like the difference.
You have 2, you pick one of the 2.
And David Aragona talks about this sometimes too, where it's like the difference between the 2 speeds and the 3 speeds in a race.
Big, huge difference.
Right? Where you just feel like there's going to be at least 2 of those 3 that are up there, And in this race, it's like, gosh, if just one of these 2 horses decides to take back a little bit, it could just change the entire complexion of who has a chance to win this race.
It does, but the monster in number 8, Ushba Tesoro,
may not matter.
It might not matter because this horse is fast enough to hang with those horses and finish. That's why he's the best. And I'm not going to go against that. And, another factor too is, what is Derma Sotogake going to do? Because
I think he's going to go.
He can be speed, but I don't think he wants it. I don't think he's going to go. I think he's going to revert to the style he had. I think in Dubai, he was gifted that lead and he just took advantage of it. And Lemaire's a very heady rider. I mean, he's one of the best in the world. And he just knew that nobody was going, so I'll take it. I don't think that horse's real running style. But doing that horse did some running up front that day. And then in the Derby, didn't run all that bad, just got a terrible start out of the gate and kind of got wiped out and still ended up 6th. After making a run, the horse kind of closed a little bit, got a couple of lengths to the lead, and then faded. And it was just too much for a 3-year-old, obviously. But, maybe a little maturity, some time. I know the horse hasn't been on the track, man, I gotta think that this horse might be okay.
So here's what I want to make sure we do when we're talking about this race. And then what I made sure to do myself is I want to make sure that I'm not talking about this and telling myself that I don't know if this horse could win the Breeders' Cup Classic for a lot of horses in this race, because this doesn't feel to me like that strong of a Breeders' Cup Classic, right? Like this doesn't, to me, that's why the 8 has to be in the mix to me, just on the X factor alone, the wild card factor. Like he just might be so much better than everybody else in here. And then I started looking at this race, and when I was handicapping it, I was getting to a couple horses, and I was like telling myself, "There's no way that horse could win the Classic." And then I start looking at the rest of the field, you know, and then I'm like, "Yes, that horse absolutely can win the Classic." You know, like they really can. And the 2 horses that I said that to myself about, I would have never told myself this a few months ago. Zandon, I think he actually is going to run really well in here. I just don't think this is that strong of a group. And what's cool about him, he always just sort of shows up. He always runs his race. And the nice thing is, if that plays out like we see it, he'll get a nice trip. He'll come running. He'll save all the ground. And what is going to happen, I think you're going to get a fantastic and maybe even a little bit more of an aggressive ride from Dettori. And again, this is a little like on top of me actually looking at Zandon and thinking, gosh, he kind of fits with just this group, especially like take the 8 out who we think could be the horse to beat, and then compare Zandon and his speed figures and everything like to the rest of this group and the way the trip might play out. And wouldn't it be very narrative-y of Dettori to win the Breeders' Cup Classic this year?
Wild, bro. That'd
with
be
all the like
super
big
wild.
races, and like he's coming back to Southern California now to ride in next year. He wants to get a Derby horse. That's sort of his thing. He announced his unretirement. This could be very narrative-y for him, but more than just playing the narrative, I would never have said, like, I never play this horse in races ever. Like,
Yeah,
ever.
because he doesn't win. And
No,
he comes close, and he's
and-
always bet, and that's my problem with him. I think
and
he's
I
gonna
think
take money.
Well, and that's the key, right? If he is 8 and above, that I'm in Zandon. I'm in his corner from a gambling standpoint. And the way I would play this race was Zandon with my 3 horses, like in a pick 4 or pick 5 would be Zandon, Ushba, Tesoro. I think the other one would be Bright Future. Like, I
would have said Clapton myself. Clapton's my long shot.
Talk to us about Clapton a little bit, and then I'll go back to Bright Future.
I think Clapton is just a hot horse. He's really coming into nice form, and I don't expect that to change. They got Tyler to ride this horse. I think he could pick up pieces and get in the number. I mean, if you compare him and Bright Future, they're kind of similar.
And the only reason, figures wise, Clapton is not far out of this at all. And the only reason why I went to Bright Future was I can just look at him and see like a later developing horse who's shown a lot of recent improvement. He went, like, going to say, put a line through the Brooklyn race, because that was the only race in his career that was really, really bad. And since then, he's had 2 big races. He hasn't beaten a ton, but again, this is just not that strong of a group. Right. I think maybe he can sit right behind him. So I ended up coming back to a couple horses I probably wouldn't have, but I think that both of us will kind of look at this race like, man, if the 8 shows up with like an A- race, I think he's better than this group. If he takes to the conditions and like he's just out on the track and doesn't get in trouble and gets a sort of good trip, I think the 8 is by far the best of the horses in this race. And if it's not him, then I was looking for a couple horses who, if it's not him, I think they're all really competitive.
Oh yeah, this is a great race. I mean, it's tough. And you know what? Honestly, I mean, as disheartening it is without Arcangelo, it kind of opens up the race a little bit.
Oh, I know.
But Zandon is such a tough read because the horse runs crack race every time and is always there, just doesn't get it done. And there's going to be that time when this horse is going to jump up, and this is a good time for it.
And I'm kind of hoping, because you know how we play horses that are like the light bulb angle?
Hmm.
I'm kind of hoping that it could be like the second light bulb angle. He's a born again light bulb angle with Zandon right here, right? It's
Yeah.
because it happened after he hadn't won a race since April of 2022 before he just won. And
Right.
he
The
just won
bluegrass.
when he
Yeah.
was like way better than that field, right? He's a lot better than Film Star and Law Professor. But sometimes for a horse like this, it's like the confidence that you need to remind yourself what you're supposed to do and not just be like the pack animal horse who runs a good race but is content with being right around everyone else. Now, can he be back to, I mean, he runs right back to that same race or back to one of his bigger races last year from a figure standpoint. What do we do with your old boy, White Abario, the Florida Derby winner? He was
I,
he was big in the Whitney. That was an awesome race,
yeah.
and he's run good races for Dutrow.
Yeah, he definitely has, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
Those races were kind of, at least the Whitney was wasn't that strong.
And he got a
And
great trip and just sort of went on
perfect
with it,
trip.
right?
Right, and that's usually what I'm against, but I hope people bet him because I was shocked when I saw 4-1 on the line. I was like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, I
And
thought
then
he
but I keep hearing steam on this horse.
mhm.
So, I don't want any part of him, but I can't knock anybody who does because he has run some good races, especially recently that he wasn't running before. Like when he was getting beat by Fort and you know uh, those types, or I'm sorry, Taba, he couldn't compete. He was slower, but all of a sudden he's faster now. His two races. So I do expect an improved effort, but I just, comparing him with Ushba, I couldn't compare the two, and Ushba looks way better.
Just two other to mention on the classic before we get to our final two Breeders' Cup races. Let's talk a little bit more about the two horses to the very outside. First, Arabian Night. So, yeah, he's the morning line favorite now, and he's won 3 of 4, and he's looked very good in the mornings. But he's just the real key to the race with what happens with him and Saudi Crown because I don't I don't think at 1.25 miles this horse wants to sit off. If they were going a little shorter, I think he could do it. But I think at this distance, he wants to be out there on the front end, winging it in order to
Mm.
get this distance at his best,
Got
like
him.
he did in the Pacific Classic. I just don't think he wants to be sitting off and he's going to be able to sit and stalk and pounce.
Yeah, this it's a tough task from out there, because usually what happens with Arabian Night is, um, he usually, when he's won, he's kind of gotten a breather sort of in the middle of the race, and I don't think he's going to get any breathers in this race, and that might affect him, especially coming from the 12 spot, having to work hard to get the lead and then work harder to keep it. I mean, he's certainly capable, but he's a 3-year-old going against older. Um, it's tough, man.
Yeah,
I can't, not at a short price. If,
me
if if
neither.
the horse was up around 6-7-1, maybe.
And we just won't get that from him. So I
Right.
just,
And you have 2 3-year-olds that are the speed horses, which is very interesting too,
mm-hmm.
in Saudi Crown. So, man,
Gosh.
I mean, this just goes so many different ways, and that's why I can't kind of concede to a price. But the horse that I like fits all the boxes, and he's probably going to be short in Ushba.
Proxy, I've tried a few times here and there. He's
Yeah, he
quirky,
just got a
man.
terrible draw, and
Yeah.
I
And
can't see a scenario where this horse wins unless nobody goes to the lead, and this one ends up on the lead. That's the only way.
so we get to the final of our two Breeders' Cup races on Saturday. First up, Barry, let's get to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. They'll be going 5 furlongs, so it's not down the hill at Santa Anita, just on the 5 furlongs here. And the two back-to-back races, probably two horses that I've been kind of really, really high on in these spots. And I might play different tickets where I have like one of these horses singled and then the other horse singled in a lot of the exotics if I can get there, or just maybe short with these horses and one or two others. In the 10th, it's Motorious for me. I just in a race like this, I know there's going to be a good amount of speed. especially with Living the Dream, who has to go. Caravel and Tony Ann are not going to want to try to sit off that much. Tony Ann did it last time and it worked, but Caravel's got to go. They're down to the inside. They are going to be pushed quite a bit. They're going to be flying in this field. No Balls is super fast. And man, just watching Motorius and how he's been handled for this race, he's just been so, even at 5, the last 2 times we've seen him at 5, he's had no problem getting up. None whatsoever. And I think because he's a closer, people may think that he'll have a tough time getting up at 5, but I actually think 5 is fine for him. Some of these horses just have no problem. If as long as he stays clear, this was a horse who I was very confident would run well. I drafted him in like a fantasy league coming into this. I've been super high on him, and I think he'll run his race. Looking at the way it shapes up, I'm expecting a big one from Motorius, my friend. But give us some others, or talk to us.
Who is going to ride Beer Can Man? Because he drew in, correct?
Beer Can Man is in. Okay, so that's I'll see if I can find that.
I'd be curious because if Pret, that's going to be real interesting. I would think that Pret is going to stay with Motorius, but you never know.
And what's funny, Beer Can Man way out wide would probably be better down the hill, because down the hill way out wide is not that bad. The way it goes, you want to be. You want to be out wide, but talk to us.
I like Beer Can Man here, off the draw, and I think he might get overlooked just because of the post position. And in a 5 furlong race, this horse is awfully good. He just hasn't had any luck.
He had
especially in the last couple. Yeah, the last 2.
Even at
Keeneland, right? And I think this might help him being way outside like this. I remember he was the way outside horse when I crushed him on Preakness Day. He was the way outside. He was the 8 horse out of 8 in the field, and he ran a great race that day. And I think he can duplicate that at the same distance. He's definitely a player here for me. Azrak, I took a glimpse at, but I don't think that one is all that great. I think that one might show up late. But the other horse that kind of caught my eye is Roses for Deborah.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned her. She's my second. So if I'm 9-10 basically, right? I think she can sit that trip, and we just toss out the yielding race.
Yeah, I'm 9-14. So yeah, I think the yielding race was definitely a throwout. She's been excellent. She gets top rider in the country here in Irad, and she's getting better. I mean, the only thing that stopped her last time was the rain.
She was going to be a much shorter price without that race on her form.
Oh yeah,
for last time out, and I think we can really eliminate it. So Barry and I both like Deborah. We'll both use another one at least in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. I mean the
forgotten horse is that one, Stablemate, is Big Invasion.
Yeah,
who hasn't been in the greatest of form because he comes from way back.
And the rail could be.
This could be the equalizer though. I don't particularly like him on the rail, but it might be okay. It might not be as bad. It just depends on what happens in front of him once they
You'll
break.
Be rewarded for it.
Yeah, I think you get your price. I mean, I can see it. I mean, Thin White Duke, who beat him at Saratoga, is a pretty good horse on different surfaces too. And then that run at Woodbine was okay against decent horses. It was a good prep for this.
The Turf Sprint, second to last of the Breeders' Cup races on Saturday. The final of the Breeders' Cup Saturday races is the Breeders' Cup Sprint. That's going to go as race number 11. Barry, we have a field that will be led by last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, Elite Power, who is 9-5 on the morning line. Talk to us about this field and who you like in the sprint.
I'm going to start with Elite Power because I'm against that horse here.
Yeah, me too.
I think that the campaign this horse had is taking a toll, and it showed that last race at Saratoga, and they needed to give him time. But I just can't see that horse dialing up a big performance, especially against what he's facing in Speedboat Beach, who is super duper fast. I really don't understand why they even put this horse on the turf, but that's for people better than me to figure out. That being said, I think Dr. Shivel is
Oh, there's my
sitting on a
guy.
huge
Yep.
race here.
Yep.
And honestly, I couldn't really separate that one and the inside horse Nakatomi. And the only reason I ended up with Dr. Shivel instead of going with the longer price is because of the rail.
Mm-hmm.
If it was flip flopped, I'd be all over Nakatomi. But I think Shivel needs this race
It's
for revenge because he really should have won last year and just got nipped.
and he's so
Or
to
2 years
me
ago,
he's
sorry.
he's honest, he's versatile, and he can sit close and not too far from Speedboat Beach, just like he did last time out. He's going to have the second off the bench. There were I mentioned Shayar. I think I had 4 horses down, and it was Shayar, Songline, Cody's Wish, and Shivel as the ones that I really liked. And the other couple, I mean, sure, I'm going to mention Cody's Wish, or I'm going to, I mean, the horses that look good that are like the favorites, big deal. But
Right, yeah.
this horse I thought looked really good too. And I really liked what I saw from him. And more than anything, this is a Breeders' Cup sprint race that doesn't have a lot of speed in it. So I think it'll help him because it's Speedboat Beach. Like, he's the one that's going to dictate this race. It's his race. He's gonna be on the front end. He should. And I think Dr. Shivel should make him work a little bit and then just try to sit right behind him.
Yeah, and I really don't know what to do with Gunite. I don't know, because
I
they
prefer
seem
this.
like they want the lead, but they really don't.
I know.
I don't know.
I think I prefer this
one.
because, remember we talked about him on that Parks Day, right? When he was going longer, and it was like, he's a heavy favorite, but he's not really a speed horse. Remember, he won in the Forgo. They took it to Elite Power that day, but he's never really been a runoff speed horse. I actually think cutting back is better for him. The way I play this race, Barry, I myself would chuck out Elite Power, and I would play the 3 horses that I think will probably be right the next tier right behind him: Dr. Shivel, Speedboat Beach, and Gunite. I think that's how I'm going to play it in like a pick 4, pick 5. I chuck out Elite and I use those 3. And I think that either Speedboat Beach gets the lead, Shivel's sitting right there, and Gunite's kind of sitting like right there, not far off with him, and can close a little bit. And like, I'm with you. I think Elite Power is going to be like overbet in this spot. And
absolutely.
I'm just not 100% on Elite Power coming in. So
yeah, so I just trust and know that I'm definitely going to, if I'm alive to anything, I'm going to have Nakatomi and Dr. Shivel on every ticket I got.
Nakatomi, big price here that Barry will also be using that can come closing. So as we finish up here, want to remind everyone that the Breeders' Cup past performances are available, and you can get those packages just one day out, clocker reports, everything else you need. Barry, before we go, let us know, though. You've been busy. You've been doing lots of stuff. Tell us where we can find more from you, Big Circles, or any of the other stuff that you've done.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they even got me to do some write-ups.
Did I say Big Circles? This is where I is going in Monday, going in Mondays, big circles. See what I'm doing?
Maybe we'll
right
change
now?
it. That sounds actually good.
Big circles sounds great. Tell Chuck I'm working on one for you. Yeah, we gotta get a new logo going.
We did the same thing. Went over the races with Jason Bites, who is Jose Lezcano's agent.
Nice.
That's out. Did a little Friday action with the Notorious OTB. Did a write-up for our new website, by the way, Racing Hub, rcnghub.com. So we launched that. I mean, it's not in its full form. We're still tweaking things and what we're going to do with a lot of the content. But we have stuff going up, so you definitely want to check that out. I mean, we're going to do some sports stuff too, like baseball, basketball, football. So we're moving ahead. We're forging ahead.
So just as we are about to finish up, Barry and I are recording this on like Thursday evening at about 7:00 p.m. Eastern time, just to mention a couple scratches that David Grenning from DRF just posted. So for Friday races, Grandmo the First is out of the juvenile turf for Saturday, Exalted out of the mile,
Ah,
the
well,
horse that we
that makes a
mentioned.
decision for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. American Theorem out of the sprint, Twilight Gleaming out of the turf sprint was an AE. So just wanted to get that information to you as I just saw some of that a second ago before we finished up here. So Barry, my friend, thank you. This week was a busy week for me, and you were so awesome being flexible with your time, helping me out. And man, I always appreciate it. And I hope you have an awesome weekend covering the races. You said you're going to work on trying to get to the Breeders' Cup next year, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I gotta go out and see my man Gino
That'll be a
on his home
blast.
turf.
I know. That'll be a blast. That'll be a blast. Folks, thank you. And I hope all of you have a fantastic couple of Breeders' Cup days. I recorded a Friday preview myself. It was just quick because it was on Thursday. So I did go through all of the races. I used the past performances too. So if you need a little help with the Friday races, you can find that as well. It'll be part of the podcast altogether, or you can find it on social media. I'll have a separate video for that one. We'll talk soon again, my friend, because then after this week, probably a few days where it's kind of a little bit of a calm. And then, that's what's great about racing. There's no off season, right?
That's
It just keeps rolling. Next week, we'll still have more Woodbine. There'll be Del Mar coming up in just a little bit. We'll be getting ready and closer and closer to the big Santa Anita meet that's going to come up not long, your neck of the woods, Gulfstream Park, the championship meet is going to be opening up. So yeah, it just never stops and never slows down. Good luck to everyone, and make sure to get to drf.com for all of your needs. Shop.drf.com for those Breeders' Cup PPs and packages. The direct link is right there if you're watching the live stream. Good luck.